Hello, everybody. So today finishes up module 7 lectures. We're getting very near the end. I guess 1 week to go after today's lecture. And hopefully something kind of interesting today. The main thing on the list is CSS animations. We've seen changing color. We've seen setting colors, but not changing colors. And that can be really useful. Or making things spin around in circles and grow and shrink. And every CSS property we have, we can animate those. It's a really efficient way to animate things. Then might look at image maps. I threw that on here, depending on how long we talk about animations. It can be useful. It's something that has definitely been misused in the past, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. And just a little useful tip I found. Actually, I think a couple years ago, I'll get to that. But a little useful tips about image maps if you want to use those. Realized that at some point recently, we haven't actually looked at favicons in class. And the textbook, like I said, the textbook mentions them briefly, which is probably out of date. There's a big change about 5 or 6 years ago, where we don't have to use ICO files. We don't have to use specific icons. We can use any image type. And at the speed textbooks get updated, that sentence may not have been changed yet in there. Same thing with their section on SEO, which I believe is the reading assignment this week. That's a very, very dynamic thing. So what's in the textbook was what it was several years ago. It does change. There's some key points that are still there. And the main thing, like we talked about the other day, is don't try to manipulate search engine optimization. People who program search bots will take personal offense to that, and you'll never get a good search result again. So a couple things there. Fairly short list because at this point in the semester, I like to make sure there's plenty of time to work on projects. We kind of front loaded the class so that there was a lot of stuff coming at once near the beginning, so that when we get here, we can back out from the lecture time and new material and spend some time working on those projects, finishing the projects, getting past the homework done. Or most of you all have more than one class, so you probably have lots of things to do. So near the end of classes, I always like to try to get the odds and ends, and we'll look at some of those. CSS animations are kind of an important thing. We want our site to be somewhat dynamic, and it can be a little tedious to fully animate it in JavaScript. It's not bad. It'd be the same thing you were doing if you were making a game engine in JavaScript. But it's there's a lot of steps to it where the animations are built into CSS, or the style animations are built into CSS. But first, before we jump into that, I did want to let y'all know about something coming up soon. You're heading into, well, really the thing with technology. There are annual conferences, or sometimes semi-annual conferences, that they announce all the newest technology and stuff. Most people are familiar with the Apple one, but the Apple one has moved to a commercial. So they announce the technology a month ahead as far as anybody in the field is concerned. Developers, hardware support people, they find out about it a month ahead, and then the Apple conference really is just a 3-day long commercial. But for a lot of the other technology companies, they still do the traditional conference announcement. And NVIDIA announced theirs, they do it twice a year. So NVIDIA GTC conference, is what they call it. And NVIDIA's is focused towards developers. So that applies to our class here, the software developers. They announced the sessions today. So the dates are already known. So March 20th to 23rd coming up. What is that? 3 weeks from a couple days ago? 3 weeks from yesterday is when it starts. So there might be some interesting things here you might want to take a look at. Or most of the major companies do conferences like this. So keep an eye out for conferences, start looking for them. NVIDIA's is always focused specifically towards developers. There's a lot of workshops. I just looked at the number a moment ago. I think there's 29 in total. Things like deep learning, it is NVIDIA, so things that we use the GPU for. And after the conference in September, all their plans moving forward also use, they're going to use DPUs, that's data processing units. So if we have computers soon, we'll have CPUs, DPUs, and GPUs, so we can just properly distribute workloads to the hardware most suited for that. So one that caught my eye is they're going to, on March 22nd, a workshop for building the conversational bots, conversational chat bots. The workshops, the training things aren't free. How much is this? $149, or if 5 people attend, it goes down to $99. But a one-day event, and learn everything you need to know to make those. You'll have a working model by the end for an 8-hour training session. But along with that training stuff, which there's quite a bit there, if you want to look through this stuff, I just searched NVIDIA GTC, and 2023 was right near the top of the search results. Or close this. That's in the way. Oh, there it is. You're gonna find the little X to close it. Couple others, the workshops cost money. Those are like actual training things. So when you're out there working in the field, the company you work for will pay for those things. So that's further training, that's improvement to the company employees. So that's something you pass on, sort of personal development or professional development, or most good jobs will give you money for things like that, like attend sessions and stuff. NVIDIA's is always huge, but then there are 823 free sessions where it's just people talking, fireside chats, Q&As, things like that. The keynote is March 21st, 11 to 12:30. That's where the CEO NVIDIA will talk about all the stuff they've done lately, the latest advancements, the upcoming plans, things in motion. It's usually really, really interesting stuff to talk about. I like to catch that one. And then lots and lots of different panels and discussions and boards and fireside chats and all sorts of things to learn about. 823 of those in a 3-day event. So it's big enough you can't attend all of them. It's not like the way Apple and a couple other corporations turned their annual conference into just a 3-day commercial. It's like, here, buy our newest product, but showing the latest advancements in the field. They'll step away from their own equipment occasionally. It is NVIDIA, so they do try to promote their own equipment, but they will step away, and usually they're very explicit about certain models of certain of their high-end models versus things that any GPU can do to just show the technological advancements and stuff. But I really enjoy that one. It's coming up very soon, so I thought I'd let y'all know about it. And just search NVIDIA GTC. Make sure you choose the latest date. But if you choose one from last September, there's still some interesting stuff that we're only, 7 months away from now. It's only 7-month-old technology, so very few people really know about it. Or any of those. It's it's relevant to where you're heading. You might want to check out at least one of those. That'll be a really good one, or check it some other conference that you would be interested in. See what the latest newest stuff in the field is. And then as far as those workshops, those cost money, which is rough when you're a student, but when you're out there, have a good job. Most decent jobs are going to pay for professional development, continued learning, personal development. There's a bunch of different labels, but there'll be some money to go to conferences, things like that. And well, one that big spread out around the world, but usually the ones in America are nice. So your company would like fly you to Santa Barbara or Miami or New York, put you up in a hotel while you go through those training sessions for a couple days. So it does kind of also end up being a job and an important one for the career you're heading towards if you're in this class. But for us today, got a few more things to look at for our material. I don't think CSS animations are in the textbook. If I remember reading them, I don't think our book mentions them. It makes a big deal on your page. We've seen all those things. So fonts, colors, borders, shadows, rounded corners, and we set it on there. And when we open the page, we see that style rule we applied the whole time. But what if we can do better? Maybe it starts square and then the corners get round, or starts round and rounded off and the corners get square. Or sometimes, or the colors change, fade in and out, things like that. What we've seen so far is once we put that rule there, it's applied. It's there from when we open the page, we close the page. So there are ways to animate things. It's more efficient than animating with client or server side scripts. So we could have the server rewrite that text file before transmitting the CSS. That's hopefully that immediately strikes you as probably the hardest one for this option for developers to go through with. We do the same thing with client-side scripts. We looked at JavaScript. Oh, we're putting a note here. We didn't see that in JavaScript either. Well, we're talking about changing CSS. We might as well take a look at how do we access CSS from JavaScript. It says CSS from JavaScript. We saw JavaScript, the dynamic scripting. So I mean, here we'll do a quick thing. It's very consistent. It's kind of obvious that the same person named it all the way through, so it's really easy. Get the element and then dot style, dot, and then the properties in camel case instead of the dash like that. So, and that's pretty much it. We'll see an example of it today. So we can access it from JavaScript to make some changes. But that is a little time consuming. We can't really rely on client-side scripts because client-side scripts are going to run on a computer that we have no access to. So anything client-side, you want to be careful because it might not work at all. That is going to depend on the computer that you're transmitting to across the internet. And we have no idea how their computer's set up. We don't know what sort of firewalls they have in place, what sort of viruses they have on their computer, what sort of RAM is available, any of that. So it can be you want to be really careful relying on client-side scripts. And so a lot of the big frameworks, that's a big deal in it. So like Bootstrap and React, I may have encountered those where it's been looking into website stuff so far this semester that they have really nice exception handling. So they still can't trust the client-side computer, but they had some really good programmers handling gracefully when it does. That's a lot different than when, if we write a simple script with no backups and then it just doesn't work on the computer. What does that do to our page? So if we had animations relying on it, that would be problematic. CSS is handled by the browser. So CSS is actually just part of the code. CSS is part of the program that's actually running, part of the browser program. So it gets passed on to some other code. We can rely on it running a little bit more reliably. So the idea is we set keyframes for some key points, important parts. So like the start and the end, all the movements. So like starts here, ends here, and maybe halfway in between, we're up here or something. And then it just goes through that motion. Or you make color changes, things like that. And the computer will fill in the in-between amount. So anybody who's seen like 3D modeling versus traditional animation, like what Walt Disney did, where you sit down and draw every single frame. With 3D modeling, or when we can do it in 2D as well. But vector graphics, we draw the model once, and then we kind of set it up to a skeleton, so for a skeletal structure or rigging. And then we move that rigging from the start point to the end point, and the computer fills in everything. It's a lot like that. So very easy to work with too. So it looks something like this. So add keyframes, sorry. And then we need to give it some sort of name. Animation name, I'll just put that up here. And then in sets of curly braces, so this should look kind of familiar, right? From media queries, back when we saw fonts, add font, add media. We've seen the add stuff a couple of times. So also have add keyframes, give it a name, open curly braces, shouldn't be any surprises there. And then it kind of looks like CSS properties inside. So the first one we need is from. And then in here, we just list a bunch of CSS properties. I'll write it like a comment. CSS properties. And then we do, if you haven't guessed already, then we do one called to. Where do we start at and where are we going? So from these properties, position, color, size, all of that, to some other properties. CSS start properties. And then we go to our CSS end properties. Oh, and then in our regular selector, so then later in our CSS, am I still on the screen? Yeah, camera still looks like the camera's still pointing at me. In our regular selector, we have an animation dash name property that gets filled in with one of our animations. So it's filled in with that animation. Oh, that's why I was saying that. Pulled the stuff out of my folder and I was trying to figure out why it had two different sets of notes. It's like, oh yeah, because it's pause and do an example, and then we'll look at the stuff on the second page. So there's more to come, but let's jump in and look at an example of this. Oh, and fave icons, because we haven't really seen them. So we don't open this. Oh, that's not good. I hope you all read that. The other chair for School of IT, his car is getting worked on this morning. It's taking a long time, and I think glancing at it, it looked like the technician got hurt on the car report is. That's never good. But I need those messages popping up, so I need to close out Teams. until Microsoft decides to reopen it, because apparently it will do that. Let's see. So we need some HTML. Do I have anything in the delete folder? Probably have some stuff from the other day already. Pretty sure I'm done with all that. So save, delete folder, make a new folder called animation. And this will be index.html, but I should probably put that in that folder. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to delete that metadata. We're talking about metadata. I have it as an odds and ends at the end, because those two that I just deleted don't really do anything. If it's Unicode encoding, this is saying use the default, but that's what happens if we don't type that line. So usually that one we would want to use if we were using a different sort of encoding. Like if we wanted to type in Egyptian hieroglyphs, so we needed UTF-16. We would need to put that there. Otherwise, it's just saying use the thing that's the default on every browser there is. And this one is not necessary anymore. It shouldn't have been necessary for like over 10 years, but Apple refused to come around and do what everybody else in the world was doing. But they finally, it's not required for Apple devices anymore. Put a label on here. And that thing we haven't seen yet. I'm just going to put a quick hello world, open this up. So something happens. So when we open it up, we've seen the title a lot. But right now, I've just got that generic icon there beside it. If there were a bunch of tabs open, a whole lot of them would just have that same generic icon. It'd be hard to identify our site on there. Or the thing for search engine optimization, which wasn't there when the textbook was written, so it's one of the newer ones. Branding is very important. Search bots can recognize branding, both images and words. Like your company motto, logo, those common things. I saw it on Semi today, the pies. Everybody, or nobody doesn't like Sara Lee. Right? Search bots would recognize that. The logos, both verbal and image-based. So we're going to take a look at those, which, again, when the textbook was written, we were stuck with only one type of file we could use for that, but that's no longer the case, and the book probably has not been updated since then. So I'm just going to open Paint and, whoops, not PowerPoint. I'm going to open Paint. There we go. Just to get an image to work with. I'm going to draw a quick smiley face. That'll be fine. Oh, well, I'm drawing a smiley face. So I've been saying it more and more in lots of classes. Let's use a crown, grab. Emojis are part of our language, right? People use those, and I refer to my own emails and say that that's something that we see in professional settings and stuff. But if you had not heard yet, the SEC included regulations on them last week. So emojis are included in SEC regulations. So if you're like on the board of some company and send somebody a message and include the rocket emoji, that counts as insider trading, because that's what that would mean, which I assume happened, has now happened. So emojis conveyed communication about insider trading. Otherwise, they wouldn't have passed rules like that. And other ones, but it doesn't get more professional than SEC regulations, right? And that does include emojis now. So we'll link to it the same way we do our style sheet. We need the link tag. The relevance is icon. Probably could have guessed that. And this one, we do have to have the MIME type. So the MIME type is going to be, we're sending image data slash cross-platform icon. Image data and cross-platform icon format. Remember when we kind of phased out of using those in our CSS? But MIME type is the server sends a little message about what type of data it's sending. So our CSS was always text/CSS. We're sending style rules in text format. Here we're sending a cross-platform icon to serve as image data. And then we could either go with href or source. We can use both of them. Which one should we use for an image? Source. Yes, because hyperlink reference connects us if we need part of it, don't need any of it, need all of it. We can pick and choose sections of it. And source is the same every time. We need the whole file every time. So source is better for images, but in a link, both of them will, in the link tag, both of them can be made to work. href will work consistent here. We should use source. I'll change it to source in a second. And I put that smile.ping file in there. And that one might be different than the book. I haven't looked in a couple editions, but we used to not be able to use ping data. It was another one browser specific. Firefox would let us use pings. And I think Opera would let us use pings. But none of the other browsers would let us use pings. But now they all do. So we open it up, then we get that little icon. Oh, my mouse. We get that little icon in the tab too, which is really useful when there's a bunch of tabs open and we don't have enough space to read the title in any single tab. We can at least look at the image. So all of it's in the book. The book might have said that. I haven't looked in a couple editions. I do, well, at least the last two editions, I opened it to that section in front and said what's changed in this edition. And it was always just typos, or I think in the most recent one, they added flex and grid finally, even though those have been around for a while. Takes a while to get textbooks up, but that can be a really important thing, especially for branding, and search bots will recognize that. It does help you improve your case, improve your ranking with the search bots. So now we need something to happen on our page. I'm just going to do a quick example of what we can do here. Maybe section. I'll call this flower. It's springtime, really, really nice outside. So flowers blooming is on my mind. That would be a good animation. We just have it sort of appear or grow into the thing. We'll put a paragraph in there. It's springtime. So that gives us something we can style. We can put some style to, right? Guess we need a style sheet. Putting the word wrap off. I think most of it is the only thing missing there on that line is an angle bracket. If anybody was copying along that line. Oops, gotta turn my phone down. I should probably do that before more messages come in. Which is odd, because just a few minutes ago when I walked up to the car, I looked at the phone and there was 3 messages that I didn't hear come in. I guess I just didn't hear them or was distracted. So we need a style sheet. type is CSS data in text format. Subtly mentioned it before. Sometimes it matters that we need to think about what the computer's doing, and remember the computer reads things in backwards from our files. So the computer is going to read that comment there and see the CSS part first, and then read the text. CSS data in text format. Same thing with the cross-platform icon representing image data. Then we need a reference to it. Animate.css. We might put some more things other than animations in there, but that'll work for now. Save that with that name. And we do need some default style rules to apply to it. So I'm going to grab that flower class and maybe a background image, a linear gradient, and 48 degrees. That goes from forest green to sky blue. Typo somewhere? Oh, whoops. Yes, I did. Class equals flower. That's a little bit big. Can't do much animating when it covers the whole screen, right? So width of 234 pixels. Or change it to 0. Here's that. That's what I was thinking. And probably some height too. 234 pixels. That sounds good. Something like that. We can move our words around, things like that. But oh, actually, I remember why I did that sideways. We'll go back to 48 degrees. So as far as the image goes, it's like the sky is to the right. I did that for a reason, because the animation would get a lot more complicated very quickly if I needed to go up. Going right is a much easier basic example. It shows the key points, and then there's going to be lots of lag time today to play around with this. Like, okay, that works, except that she's kind of always there. Let me add this position relative, and I'll go from the left 30 pixels. Move it over just a little, go from the top, and 30 pixels. So nothing fancy there, nothing new, right? All things we've seen before. But it's just always there. Once it goes there, once we load the page, it shows, and it doesn't change until we get to the end. And then the little theme that I had on my mind for the day is out there is springtime. Things are starting to grow. All of the trees around campus are starting to bud out today. I was noticing walking through the parking lot. So very soon it's going to be it's going to look really nice, but those of us with allergies, there are a lot of trees and plants and landscaping around campus. So there's going to be lots and lots of sneezing not sneezing season, but still, I'll take it over blizzard season. So we want to animate this. So we'll set up some keyframes. Grand entrance. That sounds like a good name. And I just made up that name. Like we do for classes and IDs, that's something we need to refer to, so we just have to give it some sort of name. And then we have those two properties we need, so from and to. And we just kind of set up where these need to be. So from, let's say from the left, and this is why I did that. I guess I could have grown from the bottom. Relative positioning does have bottom too, doesn't it? I was overthinking it when I was getting this ready in my head right before we started. But when putting things together, there's often a little back and forth. I'll just come from the left instead of changing it up now. So we need to be on the left somewhere. So maybe it was 30 pixels by 30 pixels over and then 234 pixels. Maybe we need to go at least minus 280 pixels. The negative 280 pixels will leave us way off from the other side, right? All the way off the screen. And afterwards, we can go up to left of, left 30 pixels. So just changing that one property to begin with. And then we can just ask for that animation. So animation, and you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of them there in the predictive text. A bunch of words, we'll talk about what some of those mean. But the animation name is the first one we need. I'm going to call it grand entrance. Will that all fit on the screen at once? I think it's all going to fit on the screen at once, but hopefully that makes sense. Because the only thing new is that add keyframes, and then those should hopefully look like the regular CSS stuff we've been doing. Just nested inside there, and then we get some properties, which we saw a while ago. Oh. What did I forget? Oh, I think I might get this. We also need to say how long that's going to take. So animation duration, maybe 4 seconds. There you go. So it slowly comes in from the side. We can make it look more like spring. Let's say 2 pixels. And then at the end of the animation, we'll be at, I'm going to leave that off. I did the left for so it's 2 pixels. But notice it grows to that final property because we have what it's going to end. We have what it's going to end at. So it comes in and we only have to include the ones we need. So I put this in there at first just while describing it. But that's where we're going to end at. So we don't necessarily have to say that twice. The reader only needs told left 30 pixels at the end once. Do something else with it, maybe a box shadow. Big pigment, so 12 pixels, 15 pixels, 18 pixels, and what's a good color? Violet. That's like a spring-like color. It comes in and the shadow also, we started with no shadow and then it grew. But notice that shadow went away because that wasn't actually one of our properties. So we have that's sort of an intermediate step right before we flash back to the final property. So you can put little things in there. Maybe round off those corners. Or quarter radius. We'll start rounded off and then make the rounding go away. Probably an easy one for the example. So hopefully that's giving you some ideas of things that you can start changing on some of your sites, because you want to play around with it some. There's quite a bit we can do. And we can have multiple animations. We can have lots and lots of them. Add keyframes. Blooming. Again, we just have to say where we're starting at and where we're ending at. So from and to. So maybe at the beginning, there's set the color to RGBA, and doesn't really matter at this point. Is what I wanted is to say 0.01. So it's pretty much completely transparent. So it's going to start completely transparent to color RGBA of something purple, 189, 54, 201, and then 0.99. So I guess almost fully opaque. So from almost fully transparent to almost fully opaque, which you probably wouldn't. Maybe that first color does matter. We'll fade from the white to the purple instead of black to purple, because that's not a very spring-like fade, right? Go from spring, go from white to purple fades in. Oh, I have to apply that somewhere. So then we can put those colors on that paragraph. So in the flower class, there's paragraphs, and we can say animation name, blooming, and animation duration. We'll make it take 5 seconds. So it comes in, and then our colors are still kind of fading, but then it went back backwards. So it should probably end it with that color. So end in this color. But something that would look better here is it comes in, sets up, that animation finishes, and when that purple goes away, then our purple thing fades, it starts fading in then. That'll probably look a little bit better. Not that this is really looking great, but at least follows the theme a little. So another one we have, animation duration and name. We went those a lot. There's a single animation thing where we can put them all in one line. Unlike some of the other times we've seen that, there's a bunch there. So I would, I avoid that. We'll look at some reference material at some point and see see sort of a workaround for that, or see what's there in the reference material. But there's a whole lot of things we'd have to feed in there. So I usually do it this one I definitely do one at a time. Got direction, timeline, fill mode, iteration count, play state, and but delay is what I was looking for. So we wanted to run that blooming animation, stretch it out over 5 seconds, but we want to wait 4 seconds before we start it. And that way our other stuff comes fully on screen. Here's where I got that for. So we'll wait till this one's finished, and then we'll run that other animation. It comes in, then those words fade in. Except that we should probably those words already being there are a bit of a problem. So we can fill that in if we want to. Animation fill, but might as well take this is an excuse to jump over and look at this stuff. Look at some reference material, because that's what you're all going to do. Like I was in the classroom, well, we probably could look at all of this, but it's an active subject. We just need the introduction here, and then class is going to be fairly short today, so afterwards you're all going to jump on here with reference material and start making animations look nice. We saw a bunch of that. Animation fill mode, that's the one I was actually going for, but so you can see what each one does. Is it a link? It'd be nice if it was. That should be a link. It says what's on the page, but now I have to look for it. Keyframes, we got a bunch of examples, and like I always on W3 sites, you can try it right here. Delay, we just did that one. How many times it should run, that's useful. Iteration count. You want it to run 3 times, which I guess would be fitting for spring around here because we get days like today, but there's probably still some ice coming before it really gets warm. Or you can just put infinite and it just keeps running over and over and over again. That's something that probably you do a lot on your pages, right? Like things spinning, not like a fan spinning super quick, but like slowly slowly moving, just to give some structure to your page and make it take 45 seconds to spin like that much and then back. So it's really slow. People can still read it and all, but that might want to see that. Animation direction, your options are forward, reverse, or alternate, which alternate goes forward and reverse. Well, that might be, let's put that in here. So our spring animation direction, we'll put alternate. That way it's in the reference here when I put this online. So it comes in, and then when it finishes, it should go off. Because I'll leave it. Okay, comment that out. I'll come back and look at it. That I just randomly popped into my mind, but it should go backwards afterwards. But film mode, where's the film mode? Oh, curve. We'll look at that because some of them are straightforward. Bezier curves, you may not have worked with those before. Or there's a good chance if you worked with them before, it was on your graphics editing software, and you clicked the button by accident, and you were very frustrated trying to figure out what was going on. It's like I'm trying to draw a line, and the line's curving in weird spots, not where I click. And when I click again, it curves differently. And so you probably haven't seen that in that. So animation fill mode, our options are forwards and backwards. So forwards, we carry our to property on. So moves in this direction. So when we go forwards, whatever properties are there get carried on. If we go backwards, whatever properties are here extend back to the beginning. So for our little example, on this one, if we did animation, fill mode backwards, save that. Notice those words are at their starting point for the animation and then fade in. Little things like that can make the sites look so much better. We're not talking about animating a movie. Most of the site would still be static and just little bits of flair here and there, changing colors. Right in. I don't know why alternate's not working here. Oh, whoops. This should come forward and then leave, but no idea why the backwards isn't working. Y'all might want to try that, see if you can get backwards to work. Or alternate. Did I spell it wrong? Oh, there's also a both, fill both. So you can put your properties in the animation frame instead of afterwards. Alternate, no, I spelled it correctly. We go reverse. That's not going to fit the theme so much here, but I was thinking that was going to happen afterwards, but for some reason it didn't. Reverse alternate. We'll do it this way. It comes in. Okay, I'm not sure why alternate's not working, but I'm just going to comment that line out. If you don't know how to do what I just did in most text editors, if you highlight the words you want commented out and push Control//, the one down by the angle brackets and the shift key, that will comment things out in most text editors. If not, you can go to, usually under the edit menu is the comment stuff. Or maybe it's under view here. Either under edit or new, I don't see it there. Did I overlook it? Oh, there it is. There'll be something about toggling comments on and off, and it should show whatever the keyboard shortcut is. That's kind of an important one a very useful one when you. I guess to wrap this up, we could move that off to the side. So like add keyframes, finished. We'll go from something to maybe a height. Three pixels. That'll work. So our flower comes in and runs this grand entrance image animation. And then we can follow that up by running finished animation. 4 seconds to come in, so maybe The other one's going for 5 seconds, so 9 seconds to fade out. Do the other one. Oh, somewhere wrong. Oh, I missed a comma. That probably would have been your guess. And then we can do multiple animations that way. So it comes in, get those words, and then it shrinks down. And those words should be showing up right about the time. A little bit of flair on your thing. Oh, probably carry that one forwards. And we can build mode, we'll do none, and then forwards. So the first animation doesn't end. We can see that from the shadow. Finally disappears, and then the other one. I guess probably should have done a delay before that second one. So they're all kind of separated. So instead of what's that animation delay, none, and then 4 seconds, the other one would be about halfway through. We go 7 seconds, and then leave that 9 seconds. So it's not video game animations. These timings are probably quicker than you would want for a little flair on your page, right? Stretch that out over something closer to a minute, so it's a very subtle animation. Not trying to animate jump scares into your web page, just subtle flair. We get a nice entrance on stuff. That's how you set those up. Makes the pages look so much better. Oh, the pages still look the same, but they have a much better effect on the user. So I think that was mostly what I wanted to say about those. Oh, in the example I'm looking at, I did them a lot with, I use variables in all of them. We saw CSS variables and pull that up here. Let me show you the example that I pulled up. Yeah, apparently from all the times I've taught this class, there's only been one time that I actually saved the class examples. They get hosted on servers somewhere, put on a server somewhere, but then that site goes away and I don't seem to get them backed up. But in spring 2020, I did back up the examples. So I do have a previous one to look at. What am I looking at here? 224, I think. Yeah. So I would also normally do something like this. Set up a bunch of CSS variables. I was in that video the day we had the cancel class. And then use those variables for the animation. I find that easier, but that might just be because I've done a lot of scripting animations. So that makes more sense with what I've done many, many times over the years. Whatever makes the most sense to you. I think we could rotate that too. That might look good. Gonna add a rotation in a few seconds. So I was wanting to take a break at 2 o'clock. This is gonna be a short day. We'll do a rotation afterwards as we'll step away for like a break, and then we'll make that spin on the way in. Actually, it's just one property. We can do that and then take a break, and then we'll do something else afterwards. I was thinking it might be good to review it. So on the 2 property, along with that shadow, I want to add one we haven't seen yet. Transform. It's a whole bunch of stuff we can do in transform. Oh wait, there's more stuff to talk about after. We still need to talk about the timing. So let's take a break and then we'll look at transform afterwards. it's a very, very useful property we haven't seen. Does 10 minutes sound good to everybody? This is when I wanted to take a break because it's gonna be kind of a short day and that way there's lots of fun to work on stuff. Then we'll look at the transform, we'll make it spin around in circles. And then we'll do a quick JavaScript, grab a style sheet from the JavaScript so we can see how the styles are and they're very consistent. And yeah, not a whole lot to finish up today. It's gonna be a short day, so let's take a quick break though still, because it has been an hour. So it's not gonna be that short. So we'll get back to it at it's 2:01, so we'll get back to it at 2:11. See y'all in just a moment.